Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Circle Up and Get Real, where we talk about things that matter with people who matter. And nothing personal, Lisa, but everybody matters to me. You just matter a lot right now in this moment. And my guest is Lisa Connors, who, oh my gosh, we have so much we could talk about, Lisa, about how we got here. But I'm going to start with just saying, hey, thank you for being here, and then I'll give you a little bio. So thanks for
Thank you
being
for
here.
inviting me, Jodee. I'm so excited to be here, and I agree. All people are important, and
Yeah.
you right now are one of the most important people in my life at this moment,
See, I
and
know.
always, and
This is
always.
why you guys, you need a community of amazing people in your life because Lisa lives in the DC area. She doesn't, I live in North Dakota, but I've gotten together more with you than with a lot of people, in person. There's something about Fargo with you, which we'll talk about as we
Right,
get into
right.
this. But so Lisa is a keynote speaker, leadership coach, and the creator of a brand new platform called Name Yourself. I guess a framework, you call it a framework that guides high achievers to stop operating from old identities and start creating new ones. I can't wait to hear more about that. This is brand new.
Yes.
Through her generative leadership program, she helps leaders, founders, and executives to amplify their impact with every interaction. Welcome,
Mhm.
Lisa.
Thank you, Jodee. So excited to be here, and I love the Fargo sign behind you.
Don't you
Fargo,
love that?
the representation from the movie theater, right?
That's right. And it's a light up thing, but when it's lit up, it's too bright and you can't see it in the video. So that's why it's not on right now. But yes,
Okay, and it also it's so cool. It reminds me when I was I don't know, sometime when I was there, and you and I took pictures on the street so that we would have this
water tower.
iconic Fargo sign in the background. I love those pictures.
We had the water tower. The brand new painted water tower is what we took the picture of with us and that big, remember the big, colorful,
Yes.
bright? Yep. So that was a new project for Fargo. So Lisa has actually been in Fargo. How many times? Three or four or five? I don't know.
I think that that's not I think that's a lot more than I have. I think three. Let's go with
Really?
three.
Only three? Okay.
Let's go with three. But when I'm there for a quality amount of time and
You
doing. I
are.
try to really immerse myself in the relationships with people that I have there and spend really good quality time there. So I
Yeah.
think the last time I was there was kind of a sad occasion.
It was a sad occasion. So Lisa and I met through a friend of mine here in Fargo. And you want to tell it from your perspective how we actually met, because then I'll tell mine if it's different. Do you
Sure. And
remember?
we are speaking of Josh
Yes.
Christie, who passed away last year and way too soon. And he was doing amazing things in the community, and so proud that he had been elected to office. And Josh was a client of mine. I worked with Josh as an executive and leadership coach, and I worked with his team. And he brought on Laura Bachhaus as his CEO, and I worked with her, and she's still a great friend. And Josh was a great connector, and he knew that I loved connecting with people, and he was like, "You got to meet this person, Jodee Bach." He goes, "I'm a little afraid to connect you though, because you two are going to hit it off so much, and you're just going to spend so much time talking, and you're just going to love each other." I'm like, "Okay, okay."
Oh,
So
Josh, that's awesome.
I think he connected us by email, and then of course we set up a Zoom call, and we chatted. And I don't know how long ago that was. Maybe 5 years ago, 4 years
Maybe,
ago.
yeah.
Don't
Well,
know.
so the reason you met Josh in the first place was because you had come to Fargo. That's an interesting story in itself.
Okay, that's correct. See, I love meeting people all over the world and all over the country. So here's what happened. I had a corporate job. My last and final corporate job I left about 9 years ago. But while I was there, and I was director of marketing communications for an insurance company, and I had started doing a podcast called Ever Better. And I was just interviewing people who interested me. I was doing it to develop my voice and to put positive messages into the world. I'd gone through a breast cancer journey, and a lot of the support that I needed for myself mentally, I got from podcasts that were super positive. And I was like, I started thinking, wouldn't it be cool to do my own podcast? Followed by, but Lisa, who are you to do a podcast? And what do you know about podcasting?
Mhm.
And with some help, with the help of some amazing people that I met along the way, I started a podcast called Ever Better. So the thing is, as you know, Jodee, when you do a podcast, you open yourself to all kinds of introductions, and it was my way. It was a new lens on the world. Like I would meet someone or I'd read something and I would think, oh, would that person be a good podcast guest? So through different guests, I interviewed Greg Tavine, who was the founder of Emerging Prairie, based in Fargo. And that's grown tremendously since he was on my podcast. And I also interviewed his wife, Christy, and a bunch of other Fargo people because Greg Tavine is also an amazing connector.
Goodness, yes.
Greg will be like,
Yes.
I have someone you should meet, and he'll just text you and
TEDx is the
send you on your
reason,
way.
I mean, the reason it's here in Fargo is because of Greg. And we're one of the largest TEDx's, I think, out there.
Your TEDx is amazing. Oh my gosh. Okay. So yeah, TEDx Fargo, everybody check that out. Okay.
Yes.
So then what happened? I left my job. So I had interviewed Greg and I had this connection of Fargo people that was building all these connections. And then I looked on the Emerging Prairie website and I saw that they were doing a founders retreat. Now, I love working with founders and entrepreneurial people. So I sent Greg a text message and I said, hey, do you need any help with that? And he was like, yeah, just come on, just come over. And so I joined the founders retreat. And these are all like founders of companies in the Fargo area and beyond. And I facilitated some sessions and I did some one-on-one coaching. And that is where I met Mr. Josh Christie.
Yes, yes, right here. Well, and you were meeting at a retreat that was somewhere south of Fargo. Um, I've never been there, but I've heard a lot about this retreat center, which was really cool. And so
Mhm.
that is very much exactly how it worked on my end. The way that I met you was because Josh was supposed to do a 360, have
Yes,
people do a 360 through his coaching with you, and he
yes,
said he gave you my name. And
yes.
that's how you and I connected. And it was so funny because I was supposed to be like representing Josh in this 360 thing. And I think we talked about Josh. I mean, I know we did, but at some point you and I talked about
I,
us.
I forgot there was official business
I
involved.
know, right? I know. That's kind of how it was.
Can I just tell you something related to the 360? So, people said I got amazing information about Josh, and he was beloved. And I was so taken by the things that people were saying about him. I created a word cloud in the form of a thumbs up, and I had it printed, and I had one made for him, and then I kept one in my house that I still have. And when I went to his funeral last year, his wife had placed that word cloud out on the table as one of the things that was in his office and was important to him. And I started crying, of
I
course. I was
know.
like, oh my God, this is incredible. So it's just also a reminder that those things that you do that don't take much time can be really, really important to people.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And we may never know. We may never know how important, you know.
Right.
Um, One of my
That's correct.
clients who I got to know really well in the last 2 years, died in March. 49
Mm,
years old. Same kind of situation where I knew him really well, but the rest of the organization didn't necessarily know what he and I talked about because it was our
right.
relationship.
Right.
And yeah, it's just kind of a weird space, isn't it? When you lose somebody that you've gotten to know so well.
Yeah, and that leads into why it's even more important to do this work that I'm so excited about, which is name yourself, because
Yeah.
that's about creating what's important to you for your future and stepping into that. And it's like if you wait, you might never get a chance. You might never get a chance to do that thing. And so can I jump into talking
I
about
would
this?
love to. Yes, this is one of the many reasons I wanted to talk to you. Please share.
Because and this is how our conversations go
I
when Jodee
know.
and Lisa get together.
All right. Imagine us in person, eating or drinking something. Wow, that's what we've done when we've been together
Oh
too.
my goodness. Oh yes, you took me to Marge's
Yes, we
Bar
did
in
go to Marge's bar.
Fargo, and I had some of those. What are the eggs? Scotch
We
eggs?
had Scotch eggs, which were so good. Yes.
So good. Okay, anyway,
Yeah.
name yourself is about identifying that thing that you've been thinking about doing, and maybe the idea comes and goes. Maybe you have glimmers of it, and you shove it down. You're like, no, that's not me. That's not who I am. I've already actually in this conversation already named a few things that I've created in my life through this process. And I've just named the process. So I became a podcaster. I went through this whole thing of like, no, I'm not going to do that. Who am I to do that? Blah, blah, blah. And then met the right community that helped me. And it was important to me. And I was like, but I don't know, who am I? This is the question. Who am I to do that? And if you ask your, if you identify yourself asking that question, it's important to you. And I know
Yeah.
you've done this many times, Jodee.
Yes.
So I became a podcaster, and that was a whole series of lessons. It was hard. It was painful. It was lack of sleep,
Right.
but I did it, and I created this community, and I created great content, and it led me to become a coach. So that's another thing that I created for myself.
Mhm.
I named myself coach, but only after other people told me I was a coach. So this is another thing. Sometimes it comes to you, and sometimes people tell you who you
Yeah.
are. And you can't always believe what people tell you about yourself, right? You have to pick and choose. But enough people told me that I was a coach that I started to believe it, and I started to research, what does that mean? And I started
Mhm.
taking classes, and I started coaching. And here I am 10 years, more than 10 years later. And I love coaching, just love coaching. And most recently, I'm going to give you this example, and then I'll stop talking, and I want to ask you about a couple things. Wait, most recently, I became a drummer. I'm a
A
drummer.
what? A drummer.
Did I tell you about this, Jodee?
No, like a snare
Okay.
drummer or a spiritual drummer?
I have a full six-piece drum kit in my home. I have a drum room.
Oh my
I
gosh.
emptied out a room and I made it my drum room, and I put like the soundproofing floor. It's not that soundproofing on the on and I have a full
Wow.
drum kit. And I now take lessons at Guitar Center on Friday afternoons, like a 12-year-old
Wow.
boy. And like I really am the only adult walking into lessons.
I
I
love
love it.
that.
Um, so here's what happened. I had first of all, I grew up playing the flute, so I've always been very interested in music, and I listened to a wide range of music. And I had seen a few years ago, I saw these women in a parade. They were playing snare drums. It was like this drum corps. And I was like, that's so cool. And I looked on their website, and they were like, no more applications. We aren't taking anybody else on. And I was like, okay. And I kind of moved on. And then I like found myself attracted to drum. Like I was watching the drums. And then like a few other things happened. But then we had a speaker come to National Speakers Association DC, Clint Pulver, who's a very successful keynote speaker. He does arenas, and he incorporates drumming, a full drum kit, into every performance that he does. He's a professional drummer, he's a professional speaker. And we rented a drum kit for him for his performance. And I picked it up, and I was driving around with it in my car. And I'm like, how freaking cool is this? I've been thinking about becoming a drummer, and here I am driving around with these drums. And I went into the music store, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So I talked to him about it, and he was like, yes, you have to do this. You have to do this. And so I started looking at, I started
Wait,
looking at
no,
used
have you ever
kits.
played
Okay.
drums before?
No,
So
no.
you wanted to join a drum corps without ever having played the drums before?
Yeah, it just
When you
looks
looked
so
to
cool.
apply.
Uh,
So you, because you wanted to look cool, but you hadn't no experience being a drummer, and you went to apply.
I did. Not that it looked cool. It looked like a thing that I would think would be cool to do. I don't care how it looks.
Okay.
I'm like, that would be fun to do. And
That's
that would
so
be, this is
funny.
an amazing part of it was the community too. I was like, look at these women. These are really fun women. I
Yeah.
bet I would love to hang out with them and drum. And um, yeah, so I did
Wow.
that. And it didn't work
So
out.
then
So,
you're driving. I'm just recapping here. So then
yeah,
you're
yeah.
driving this drum set around that you had to rent so that you could have it
Mhm.
as part of his keynote. And then by happenstance, you're like, this is cool. I'm actually driving a drum set around. And did it remind you of the feeling you had when you were wanting to join these women?
I think okay, I had already decided to get into drumming
Okay.
before that happened, but it was only a couple weeks before, so I hadn't done anything about it. And here's why. Here's another piece of the puzzle. I had a bunch of work done on my house. And so I had some rooms painted. And as part of that, I'm like purging. I'm like getting rid of furniture and giving away clothes because I just want to be as streamlined as possible at this point in my life. And Jodee, I ended up with a completely empty bedroom, an empty bedroom. And I was like, okay, this is crazy. I can do anything I want with this room. What do I want to do with this room? And I was actually, this is going to sound very woo woo, but I was meditating. I was doing a
No,
form of
this is, yeah,
meditation, and
right.
I was thinking, what do I do with this room? And it just came to me, drums. That's your drum room. That's your drum room. And I'm like, okay. And then a couple of
Mm,
weeks later, Clint came to
mm.
town. And then I started looking for drum kits on Facebook Marketplace, and that was just a nightmare. That wasn't going to work. And so finally, I was just like, I'm buying a set, and and it came. And guess what? Drums don't get shipped to you assembled. And I didn't know anything, literally know nothing about drums. It took me hours and there's no instructions. I'm
Oh
really good at putting
no.
furniture together. There's no instructions. I spent hours watching videos, trying to figure it out, making mistakes. I'm still, constant. I've only had them maybe 3 months, two
Oh
months.
wow. Wow.
Yeah. So I often will bring a drum to my lesson and be like, Paul, is this set up
Mm.
right? How do we tune this?
Wow.
So I'm
That's a
practicing.
That's a manifestation. I mean, I've been talking about manifestation recently. The guest I had on my podcast last week or 2 weeks ago was talking about her manifestation story. And I mean, no accident, no coincidence. You and I have talked about these kinds of things before, but you're giving concrete examples of the way things work when your mind works toward them.
Yes. 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 So I know, and everyone is like, Lisa, you're a flutist. And I'm like, no, no, I was. And I will
Right.
probably always be a flutist, but I have a hard time with the embouchure. Like it's a certain
Uh-huh.
thing you do
Uh-huh.
with your mouth. It's
Yep.
really hard if you
Yep.
don't get those muscles in shape.
Yep.
So I'm just working on stick work, but eventually maybe I'll be in a band. I don't know. Maybe I'll be in a band with you. Do you play any
Ah,
instruments?
wow, look at this. I could just bring out my little ukulele right here.
Oh, it's cute.
I
That's a
know.
that's a nice case. That's a legit ukulele.
That's a
That's not just
legit
like a play. That's a
ukulele.
legit ukulele. Okay, so when I think about you, Jodee Bach, I think about you. I don't know if you think of yourself as an artist, but you clearly are an artist. Um, do, do
Yeah.
you say that you're an artist?
Yes. So this is 3 years after I decided to start painting actual paintings like the ones behind me, if you're watching this. Um, and I went to a show. Somebody said, "Would you display?" I don't know how this all happened when I think back, but they said somebody came to the booth and said, "Are you the artist?" And I went, "Geez, well,
That
I guess I am."
that's the first time. That's the first time
Uh-huh.
the artist term, the artist name was applied to you. Oh my
In
God!
that
And
in that
how did you
form.
feel? How did you feel?
Oh, I think it took me a second to own it, and then I kind of looked around at the booth that I'd created because I kind of went a little bit crazy and had a lot of things that I'd been putting together, the little, big, and I went, I am, and that's why I want to talk more about this name yourself because it sounds to me like what we're talking about right now is identity
Mhm.
and stepping into something that you've either, like you said about yourself, somebody had told you you were a coach or
Right.
had seen parts of you, which then caused you to become a coach and become a podcaster and become something. But I
Right.
find even more interesting what you said earlier, what's already there that's been knocking at the door of your soul, perhaps,
Yes.
that we haven't
Yes.
really paid attention to.
Yes.
Is
And
that
I
how?
think of it like a dimmer
Mm,
switch like
mm, mhm.
on a chandelier or a
Yeah.
light. I have a new
Mhm.
chandelier in my dining room, so I'm going to talk about that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not that fancy. It's from Wayfair, but it is a chandelier.
Yes.
And it's like when I saw those women in the parade, the dimmer switch went all the way up, and I was like,
Oh.
whoa, oh, I can't, you don't need anybody else. Okay,
Mm,
well, I don't know what else to do. The dimmer switch went way
mm,
back down. And then there have been a couple times where it goes up and down and up and down. And then, then I had the room available to me. The dimmer
mhm,
switch went
mhm,
way up, and then I went to the store and picked up Clint's drums, and I was like, okay, here we
mhm,
go, here we go.
mhm.
So now it's full on,
So when you
full
think
on.
about that, because you said maybe I'll be in a band, maybe I won't. I mean, it feels like when the dimmer switch goes up, do we have to know what we're gonna do with it? Like the
No, I
painting
don't know.
once.
And the funny thing about that is everybody's like, well, what kind of music are you going to play? And
Mm,
like, which drummers do you love? And what's your goal with this? And
mhm.
usually I'm big on the vision and I'm big on the goal. But right now I'm just like, I don't know. I'm learning how to hold the sticks.
Right,
Like,
right.
I don't even know how to hold the sticks and put
Yeah.
together these stupid drums. So I don't know. I'm going to wait and see where it takes me. But a friend this weekend was like, you are going to have a band and it's going to be called the Lisa Connors Band. And I was like, not me. And he goes,
Karen
yes, you are.
Carpenter. You and Karen Carpenter. She was a drummer.
Oh, she was a great drummer.
Yes, that's where she started as a
She was
drummer.
a
She
great
wasn't a
drummer.
singer.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I'll have Lisa Connor's band. I don't, that's not
Hmm.
my right now. I'm trying to just do the sticking as
Yeah, I get
quickly
it.
and as well as
Well,
I
I think
can.
so. This is a really good, an interesting space to shift to because I've known you as, uh, could I say driven? You've felt a bit driven to me. You've done a lot of things. You've been to Paris. You've met people. You've done all these things. You've gotten
Yeah.
certifications. You've done,
I'm
and
driven.
so yeah. But this doesn't feel like a drive. This feels almost like a pull.
Oh, isn't that great? Oh,
like
that's
a
great.
push would be I need to, I have to. It doesn't feel like that to me. This feels very different. Like I'm stepping
Mm,
into something that I can't not step into and explore.
hmm. That's a very interesting way of looking at it. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think the coaching and the podcast were the same way, but there is money tied to that. It's a
Right.
profession as opposed to this is really fun. And I don't know how you feel about your artwork.
Mhm.
Like, does it sort of feel like it's a hobby,
I did
but
not
still
do
you
it.
are an artist, but you're
Well,
not
sure.
relying on that income.
I did not do it to sell it. I didn't do it to sell it. I never, ever did it to sell it. And then early, people said, "Oh, is that for sale?" People came in this office and saw those three paintings. And one guy who was in a mastermind group with me, he came in, just happened to stop in to see my office. He goes, "Jodee, people would pay a lot of money for those." And I went,
And you're like, yeah,
"What?
what?
Are
What?
you talking about? Because I have no art lessons, like you're taking drum lessons.
Mhm.
There's there's no reason to expect that I would be able to get compensated in money for things that people spend their lives perfecting, you know? And so
Yes.
that to me was a huge shift because when people wanted to exchange their cash for a piece of canvas with paint on
Yes.
it, to me, that was my shift to, okay, so what I actually do as a coach, a speaker, a consultant, and those touchy-feely things that you can't always touch, that shifted for me. And I started stepping into this space of if people want, my value is worth what someone's willing to pay for it.
Right.
And then
Hmm.
the work I was doing as a coach and all those non-nego or non-tangible things became a little bit easier for me to step into.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. So for people who don't know you and haven't seen your artwork, can you talk about how you started? Like, what was the first painting you did and what are you known for now?
These are the first three I did. And this was because a friend had tried to do a project where she had like six canvases and she was going to put paint on them and whatever. I have this office that I'm in right now, which had white walls. And I knew I needed to do something when I first moved in here. And
Okay.
she didn't like what happened. So she gave me those three canvases. And I went, okay. And I just slapped some paint on them and just tried to see what I could create. And I'll move my head so you can see them a little bit, but I really like how they felt. I liked the color that happened. It just came, it's going to sound weird, but it came through me. And it wasn't
Hmm.
because I was trying to follow a pattern or eventually I took a class, like I watched a YouTube video and took a class and followed how she did it. But these three were the first step into exploration and allowing. And at the same time, I was listening to first, I think, Rick Rubin's The Creative Act.
Okay, I
And
don't
then
know
I
that
bought
book.
the
I
book.
have to write that down.
Oh my goodness.
Every time I talk to Jodee, I get
Yeah.
book
Yeah.
recommendations.
Book
Okay, it's
recommendation.
called The Creative Act.
The Creative Act. And you
Okay.
will appreciate Rick Rubin. He actually started Def Jam Records. So
Oh,
he
I
was
knew
a
the names.
music
Okay, I
producer.
know who this is. Yeah, I know who this is.
Yep,
Yep.
long beard and does
Yeah.
things barefoot and I
Love
just
language.
completely fell in love with him and every time I'd paint I would have him on in the background, his podcast or something about who he was, and I feel like I haven't been painting for about 6 months now and you're making me need to get back in the studio because it's a way to let things come through me and not have to try to make it be something.
Oh man, that's amazing. Okay, so she gave you the canvases and they were pre-painted, but
Well,
she
she
didn't
had,
like those.
yeah, they kind of like splashes. I painted them all completely green. I don't know why green, but they were
Mhm.
all one shade of green, and then I just played around with them.
Where did you get the paints and the brush?
Um, Michael's?
Okay, so you just went to the store and you're like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
get some paints and a brush.
Mhm.
Okay. And then when did you start? You started doing animals.
I know. No, I don't think you know her. A friend of mine who used to live in Fargo now lives in Dickinson, which is out in the western part of North Dakota, said, "Have you ever thought about doing bison?" And I said, "I don't want to do something that needs to look like something else because then I get into my perfectionistic mode, and if it
Ah,
doesn't look like it's supposed to, I judge it." And she said, "I really think you should do bison." Bison? Oh my gosh, what do I know about bison? But I should have counted. I bet I've painted 60 bison paintings. Big,
and you
small,
had no
detailed, not
and you
detailed.
had no training on
No,
how to paint
no.
a bison. And your bison are incredible. Okay, so for people who are not viewing this on YouTube,
Yeah.
it looks like a bison. It's like an impressionist version almost, but it looks very real. And I can't wait to hang one on my wall.
You're
And
gonna
I
get that
know
one.
that
That's coming your
other
way.
people have sold them on your like for you. They've been in coffee shops and other places,
Mm-hmm.
and you do. And then what else do you paint? What else have you painted?
You mean like
A
subject
house?
matter
Yeah.
or a house?
Yes.
No, I mean,
Not a
I've
house, but cow. You're doing cows, right?
cows. Because a friend of mine said, "Have you ever done a cow?" I went, "No, I don't know." So I did a cow, and then I did more cows, and then I started doing pet portraits. And so then people would say, "Can you do my dog? Will you paint a picture of my?" So I've done, 10 or 12 dogs. And then I did my cats. And so then I started doing animals, like, animals. And I really do prefer abstract. But for my college class reunion in last fall, I painted, how would a collage maybe of some
Right.
of the highlights of my college campus.
Oh,
And so I put a lot of different things in it, and you have to look for it close. Kind of like that, not anywhere near this, but the Michelle and Barack Obama painting, the new
yeah.
one that in
Yes.
Chicago that has all these things hidden in it.
Yes.
That, I love that. So I did that, and one of my college classmates bought it and donated it to the college, which was kind of cool,
Wow, that's
right?
amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is very interesting because it just the opportunity was there. You're like, I'm going to go to Michael's and get some paint. Who cares? I'm going to invest $3, and if it works, great. If not, and look, it's become this whole thing for you. And what an interesting creative complement to your speaking and your coaching and your podcasting.
Yeah.
So, you
Yes, and
someone else
this,
named you. I like that someone else named you artist, and you had to be like,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I had to step into it. So I'm guessing that that process you just took me through is
mhm.
something like what you do with people in the name yourself framework.
Yes, I ask people to think about the thing that they keep pushing down. Maybe they're dabbling in it, maybe they're doing it full on, but they haven't named it for themselves. And what brings you joy? When do you say to yourself, "That's not me. I couldn't do that. Who am I to do that? People will make fun of me." All those things we say to ourselves,
Yeah.
because that's an indication that this is something important to you
Oh,
and to
that's
push
good.
through and really give yourself the grace and the time. And sometimes it's money. You have to invest money into making this happen. And who knows, maybe it's a new career and maybe it's a new hobby and it opens up new communities and activities. The other thing about drumming was I was looking for something I can do for the next 30 years. And imagine I'm in my 90s and I'm drumming and how good that is for my brain and my body and my reflexes and who knows who will be around me. It just opens up. And I'm sure with art, it's a whole other world of people.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes, you're right. And what's interesting about that is the side effects or the by the ways of what you said about drumming, where you said community and activity and all of those things. And the word that really struck me is joy. And you said, what
Mm,
brings you joy? What brings you joy? I don't know that people allow themselves to think about that very often, especially in
true.
business, it seems.
It's true. We're just doing and doing and
Yeah,
doing.
yeah,
Yeah. And so another interesting part of this is we don't have to shed an old identity to bring on a new one. We can if we want to, but we don't have to. We can continue to stack all these identities. Like I do many of the same things that you do in a completely different way, but right, I'm a speaker, I'm a executive and leadership coach, I'm a mother, I'm a drummer,
I love that. Own it.
I'm a
I'm a
pickleball
drummer.
player, I'm a golfer, it's like all these
Yeah.
different things. And
Yeah.
so it's really cool to think that you can continue to create new identities and new skills and really enjoy it for the rest of your life, for the rest
Yeah.
of your life,
That's
you
so
know?
good. That's so good. Because I think sometimes, maybe in business, we get caught up in that identity and we say, I'm an accountant or I'm a this,
Right,
or if you, and then your position's eliminated or something, or you're a mother forever, but at one point your son was little and you had
right.
to like mother him, and now
Yeah.
he's older. And so I'm guessing I've heard from other friends that empty nest is a real thing. And all of a sudden you're like, well, who am I if I'm not his caretaker and his mother? And
Well, yeah, now I have an empty bedroom, and so let's turn it
Mhm.
into a drum
Yeah,
room.
that's right.
A lot of empty nesters will be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that's when I made my sewing room and my whatever room."
Right.
Um, so this also relates to leadership. I also have a program called the Generative Leader, and I like the word generative, which is typically applied to AI, artificial intelligence, because what it means to me is that those computers just keep getting more intelligent, more able to interact with other computers, and so then when we interact with those computers, it's more effective. And even though sometimes we have to talk back to them and say no and whatever, but um, people, I believe that we should see ourselves in the same way. We are generative. Every conversation we have, every person we meet, everything we do, we can choose to learn from it and gain internal power from that. And so that's what it means to be a generative leader. Continue to develop your leadership skills, continue to try new things. It won't always work out, and it shouldn't. And you're going to learn something when that happens, right? Like we learn, and like Josh is no longer with us, but we learned so much from being with Josh and from the whole experience of his funeral. Like it brought people together. Like that was just an incredible sort of celebration of his life. So there are a lot of things in life that we experience, and to me, that's generative.
That. Love that. Ah, so did somebody um tell you that generative leadership was a thing, or did you come up with that? Did it come to you? How did you come up with that?
Mm-hmm. It came to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that also came to me. I was hearing a lot about, well, I started with generative power. Okay, here's what happened. A lot of my clients, there was a week where a lot of things were happening in the world, and my clients were saying to me one after another, I feel powerless.
Mm,
And these were powerful people.
mm,
These are powerful people. And one after another, I feel powerless. And I was like, whoa, well, I've been training my entire life for this because I know that you are not powerless. And if you choose to see yourself as powerless, great, you can be. But why? So I created a program called Generative Power, and it's about explaining to, teaching and practicing building internal power with everything that we do and purposefully going into interactions, taking risks, learning, and then applying that to business is generative leadership.
got it.
So, um, so those are a few identities, I guess.
Yeah. So what happens? And you said you don't have to shed an old identity to add a new one. So
Mhm.
all these things that you're doing in business, let's just go back to your business. Are they all still there? They don't get replaced by name yourself. That adds to it. Is that how it works?
I see it as name yourself as the umbrella because it's
Okay.
all about creating your identity and your vision. So, what sort of a leader do you want to be? Let's create that through the generative leadership program. What kind of what sort of personal life do you want to have? Let's work on that through generative power. But my coaching, when someone hires me as a coach, I do all of these things. It's not like, oh, you're hiring me for name yourself and that's
Hmm.
all we're going to do. It's all related and it's all under the same umbrella. So, yeah, so no, it doesn't go away. And there are times when it's more important to talk about generative power and generative leadership and name yourself. And thank you for having me on your podcast where I can talk about all of it.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing about this podcast. I didn't realize this. 7 seasons. 7 seasons, Lisa. 7 seasons.
Wow, wow.
Right?
You are a long-running, enduring podcast because I'm on hiatus and I have been for a couple of years,
Yeah.
but you continue.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well,
Amazing.
that's a whole other conversation we can have at some point. But this is called Circle Up and Get Real. And the premise when I first started it was, what would you do if you were hanging out with your really good friends and you had a fire pit and you could sit around? You'd circle up, and then it's a little darker if there's a fire, and it feels a little safer because you don't
Yes.
necessarily see the person you're sitting next to if you're in a circle.
Hmm.
And it feels a little easier to have some of these conversations that need to come out when we're being real,
Mm.
radical, energized, authentic, and learning focused. And in that space of, I guess, generation, we're generating or allowing something
Yes.
that needs to come out. And so when you and I got together today, we didn't really say, okay, what are the talking points? And I know people like to do that, and I
Right.
know there have been times when I've been a guest on podcasts and they'll give me what they're going to talk about, and then they'll say, question one,
Right.
Jodee, blah, 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 blah. And then I'll answer the question, and then they'll go,
Right.
okay, question two, and it doesn't
Right.
feel like a conversation. I always want this podcast to feel like a conversation. And with you in person or not, we've been on the phone, we've been in
Yes.
on Zoom, it always feels like a generative conversation with you.
Well, thank you. I feel the same way. And let me address one other thing too, which is that the question one, question two thing. When I started podcasting, I did that because I was new at it and I didn't know. I was so uncomfortable and
Mm,
uncertain and unskilled.
yeah.
And so I was following a script or a framework. And as a drummer, I'm learning the foundational skills. As a coach, I learned early coaches, we have our list of
Sure,
questions. We have our
sure,
list of
sure.
questions,
Of
right? And I
course, of
remember
course.
working with my coach, Steve Chandler, who's just like, well, eventually you're just going to get rid of that.
Yeah,
You,
yeah,
you don't need that anymore after a while when you
yeah.
figure it out. But we out to learn something new when you name yourself and it's a new thing, you're going through the foundational stages and it's hard
Mm,
and you have to think it through and you are incompetent. You
mm.
are unconsciously
Consciously
incompetent
incompetent.
and just keep going. But you have to
Uh-huh.
just keep going. And
Yeah.
look at you 7 seasons later.
Well, and so that's what I wanted to say about discipline. I would never consider myself to be a disciplined person because I I'm kind of flighty in some ways sometimes. I do what I feel like doing, but I'll tell you what, when dog on a bone with some things, and I make a commitment to myself, I think, in some things that are really important to me. And if nobody ever listens to this podcast, it's still here for 7 seasons. I think your
I feel
episode
the
number
same way.
314.
Amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, I always felt the same way when I did podcasts, and I will in the future because
Hmm.
it's about having amazing conversations. If one person hears it, truly, I believe that's
Right.
great.
Right.
And you just never know what's going to come from
That's
it.
right.
So
That's right.
I do think you're a very disciplined person. How many books have you written at this point? Because I see a new one behind you.
I know. Oh, oops, up there. Yeah, I think this is 8.
See, and I am still laboring with the idea of my first book.
Hmm.
So I will have a book called Name Yourself.
Oh, we've
Um,
good.
I will have a book called Name Yourself. I'm starting to work on it. So
I love that. I
as
love that.
you help me with motivation.
Mm.
So thank you.
Well, and part of the distinction, which we were talking about earlier, I think we talked about this off before we started recording, was maybe we talked about it when we were recording, the distinction between a push and a pull.
Hmm.
And so when I sense what personally when I hear the word motivation, it feels like a push. It feels like I have to because there's a time and place where motivation gets you off the dime. We were talking about we were talking about Mel Robbins. The five
Yes.
second rule is all about getting you off the dime and going and doing something. And we need
Right.
that motivation, providing a motive, right? But
Right.
to me, there's a distinction between a motive or a motivation and an inspiration. One's a push and one's a pull. And I think for you right now, what I'm experiencing in your beingness, it feels more pull-like. Like I
Yes.
can't not do it. I can't not do this. Name yourself. I can't not be a drummer. And and that's distinct. So I'd hope
Yes.
that I can help you with the invitation to inspiration instead of the push to motivation.
Oh, yes, I love that. Thank you for reframing it that way.
Hmm.
Because I do feel inspired to do it. And many times I've said, I'm going to write my book. And it was on many different topics. many different approach. I mean, actually, the heart of it will always sort of be the same about identity and vision and creating what's most
Sure.
important to you. But the way I frame this is completely different,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
exciting. And your bison painting is going to be looking down on
I've
me with
worked
its
on it.
one eye and being like,
Yeah.
Lisa,
This is called
Lisa,
My
sit
Eyes
down
on
and
You. My
my
Eyes
eyes
on
on
You.
you. I love that. That's beautiful. So I'm going to have that on my wall, and it's going to be watching me as I create, as
I
I
love that.
inspired and create from an in place of inspiration.
Yeah, and that's just my word. I have a really good friend who says, Jody, you've got it backwards. Inspiration doesn't last. Inspiration, you need motivation. And I said, I get that. I'm not saying this is right for everybody. I'm just saying this is
Mhm.
what has caused me to rethink and then because talk is cheap and thinking is, we can overthink everything. If we have insights but we don't do anything with them, that's okay. And yet,
Mhm.
when something is born, the drumsticks become something more than just a dream. I think that's where the impact can change the world.
I like that. I'm thinking about that. And so maybe the inspiration is what gets you started so that whatever you're doing becomes part of your daily life.
Yeah, yeah, I
And
like
then it
that.
becomes normal. And then it becomes
Right,
normal. And then and
right,
that's your identity. And then
right.
you're free to choose something else along with that or not. We only have so many hours in the day,
I know.
unfortunately.
So habit stacking, if you think about it, not in a
Yes.
habit like I have to, but it becomes a habit stack. Like I do squats when I go to the bathroom. I don't know if I've told you this, but every time I go to the bathroom, I do 15 squats after I wash my hands. 15 squats. And
That's
sometimes
amazing.
in the stall, if I'm in the stall before I leave,
Why did you not share that with me before? How did you hold out on me? Okay,
I
anyways.
it's only been about maybe I'm in my second year of doing it, so I'm
I
not
like
sure if
that. I
I
like
was
that a
doing it
lot.
last time. But that's just a habit stacking, right? I'm already going to the bathroom.
Yep.
And now that I'm drinking more water, I go to the bathroom more often, which means I can
Mm.
do up to 115 squats a day. I mean, it's just
Hmm.
it's a stack. So it doesn't have to be a heavy thing when we decide to, like you in your case, not shift identity, add identities, add something.
Yes, because to your point about that, I found that in the morning, so in the morning I go to the gym and then I come home and I practice drums. That's the habit stack that I'm creating. And by the way, I keep a notebook next to me. I have a stool next to me because my mind is so creative when I'm drumming.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
it's like people always say ideas come to me in the shower. No,
Yeah.
ideas come to me when I'm drumming. And I have to now go through my notebook and actually write these down in a Google sheet, like to really document them. But I'm very creative in that way. And then also Friday afternoons, I go to the Guitar Center for my lesson. Like that's my schedule. I fit it into my weekly routine
Yeah.
now
You
because I
fit it
want
in.
to, because I want to.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to joy when we were talking about what brings you joy. And people will say, "Oh, I would love to drum. Wish I could had time to do that. Wish
Right.
and all of that is wishing. I get it. And we all have 1440 minutes. I mean, we all
Hmm.
have it. And
Right.
so how are
Right.
we choosing to use it? You said I fit it in. I make it work. Or maybe you work your
Yeah,
schedule around your drum
I
lessons,
do. Do.
right?
I do. I do.
Because it's a
Yeah,
commitment.
I know. But also there are seasons. So, right. So my son is 27. He's an adult. I don't have to worry about making meals. He lives somewhere else. I don't have to worry
Yeah.
about making meals for him or, keeping him alive as parents do. We have to keep our kids alive or
Right.
like a lot of, other responsibilities. I have a little more freedom. So there are seasons in your life and you can't be doing everything all at once. And sometimes you have to put things off for a while because for practical, real reasons,
Right.
So I just do want to acknowledge that. Like I'm
Sure.
in a season of my life where I can make noise in my house.
Yeah.
I
Well, you
I
you said
wasn't
you
always in that place.
and you said you put noise canceling on the floor, you said
I
when you
did. I
built.
bought that like foamy stuff that you
Yeah.
see in gyms. I
Yeah.
put that, yeah, and that was a fun project too. So
So
it's
good.
all fun.
It-
It's all fun.
well, it's all fun. And I think if we can find, I keep going back to Mary Poppins. To every
Yes.
job that must be done, there is an element of fun. You find the fun and snap, the job's a game. That's how it starts before just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine
I
go
didn't
down.
know that. I
You
didn't know
can
that line.
find it. You can find it in the midst of the kids screaming and the babies need to be their diapers changed. I don't know. I'm
True.
not a parent. I'm
Yeah.
making that up. I don't know. Yet I wonder if it's possible to find joy in some of those little spaces.
Yeah, to find joy in some way. Yes, yes, yes. I love that. That's a great challenge. I mean,
Mm.
that's a great challenge to anybody in any phase of life. Where can you
Right,
find joy
right.
and make more joy in your life? Yeah.
Because otherwise we end up falling into victim thinking, like poor me, I'm a victim of my circumstances. And you and I both know this is how energy works. You get
Mhm.
more of what you think
Yes.
about all the time.
Yes. So
So
true. It's so true.
you're
Well,
a brilliant manifester. Look what you've done. Look what you've accomplished. Look what you've created. Look what you've gotten through. You mentioned a lot of things. You've been a lot of careers. You went through breast cancer. I'm reading right now, you sold your business during a recession. And I remember when you initiated the divorce.
oh yeah.
And
Yes.
that
Yes. You
was
were part
not
of my support.
easy.
You are part of my support system, but
Mhm,
it was a tough divorce.
mhm.
And I hired a private investigator. So we'll just leave it at that. That's a big clue as to what went on. And I
Yep,
really relied on my friends and my
yep,
network and my
yep.
therapist and other coaches. And
Right.
yeah, I reached out to people every day. I talked to somebody about what was going on because I needed to process it. It was tough.
And
Yeah,
and I think you were demonstrating some of your own work because you didn't succumb to the things you certainly could have. You certainly
right,
had every right to be upset or sad or whatever. I'm sure you were upset and sad, but there were
right.
times that you said, I surrounded myself with the people who could help me with what I truly knew. I'm putting words in your mouth. Knew you were, knew
Right.
you
You're
were
right.
deep down.
You're right. Yeah, I did. And also I took it on like not as a joyful project, but as a
Hmm. Hmm.
job that I needed to
Yeah.
get done. And if this were
Yep.
a job and I were getting paid for it, how would I approach this? And that's
Yes.
really what I did.
Yep.
So yeah, but then sometimes you have to go through, we all have to go through these phases that are not so joyous, but we have to get there. We have to go through those so that we can get to the good stuff.
That's right. Oh man, we could and will talk forever. This is such a great opportunity for people who are listening to you to experience you a little bit because you actually coached me through some of this process, and I think you'll see, listeners and viewers, how it could be to work with Lisa. So if they wanted to find you, Lisa, what's the best way to find you?
Okay, so my website is lisaconners.com, lisaconners.com. I'm on Instagram, Ever Better Lisa. That's the name of my company. That's always been my corporate name, Ever Better Lisa. And LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn. Lisa Connors. That's really my main social media outlet.
We'll put them all in the show notes here. Um, I just
Thank you.
think you would not do wrong in looking Lisa up and connecting with her. It's about creating community, as you said, Lisa, and we attract who we are. And so if we can look at that, I look at you and I think about what I must have done right to attract you as my friend. And
Uh-huh.
that is just seriously, because the first time I ever talked to you, I thought, I'm not really worthy to talk to you. You're such a big deal. I'm coming clean on that because I was to be representing Josh in that. But it didn't take very long in that process of the 360 to go, I really like this person. I wonder if I'm worthy to
Oh,
have
that's
a
so
conversation.
sweet. Oh
I
my
know,
gosh,
right?
that's so sweet.
But
Yes.
it's true. And
Thank
and
you.
since then, I think that would be for everybody, for anybody out there anywhere. If there's somebody you admire, respect, emulate, reach out. Get to
Right.
know them. Do
True.
something. Take a step in the direction you want to go. Amazing things can happen when you pick up the phone or send an email. You just won't ever know if you don't try.
Right. Or message them on LinkedIn too. This is a big
Yeah.
thing. Like people will respond, you
Hmm.
know.
That's true. Yes, the people will respond, everybody. People will respond on LinkedIn. We
If
both
you're
have experience with
sincere, if
that.
you're
If
like,
you're
I can help you
sincere.
with the, I get 10, 10 a day, I
Yeah.
can help you with your social media and blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. I'm like, oh God. No, not
You,
that. But if you're sincerely looking
mhm.
to make a connection, that's
Use
the
your
way to go.
intuition and know the distinction, everybody, because
It's know the
you can do this.
distinction. That's right. Oh my gosh. Jodee, it's such a
Lisa.
pleasure. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
it's completely my pleasure. Everybody, go find a way to be real this week. And maybe part of that for you is to reach out to Lisa. So, radical, energized, authentic, and learning focused in all aspects of your life will bring you more of who you truly, really are. And I'm confident it worked for me with Lisa. It'll work with you for you. Thanks,
Oh,
Lisa, my
thank you,
friend.
Jodee. Thank you.
Bye.